Trump declared Antifa terrorists. Within days, ABC pulled Kimmel. That's how fast institutional collapse happens now. Let's talk about the Nazi playbook. And this isn't Godwin's law. It's the real thing. Hey folks, I'm Tad Sturmer. I'm an American scholar of resistance history and the author of Resistance History of the United States. Trump declares Antifa, people who show up to resist fascists, terrorists. ABC then cancels Jimmy Kimmel for daring to be candid about the suspect in the Charlie Kirk case. Nexstar Media Group preempts the show for the foreseeable future. Sinclair, another owner of ABC stations, goes further. It is going to air a Charlie Kirk tribute special in Kimmel's time slot and is demanding he apologize and donate to Turning Point USA. The FCC doesn't need to revoke licenses when corporations race each other to the bottom, competing to demonstrate loyalty before the demand even comes. There's a German word for this that I can't pronounce, but let me explain the idea, because you need to understand what Steve Bannon and Steve Miller have been studying. It's coordination, and was how the Nazis transformed every institution in society into an arm of the regime. Not through some dramatic purge, through fear. Professional associations, unions, churches, newspapers, social clubs, they all coordinated themselves with Nazi ideology. Most did it voluntarily, racing to prove their loyalty before they were forced to. Here's how it actually worked. In 1933, the Nazis didn't have to shut down every newspaper. They just had to make examples of a few, and the rest fell into line. Trade unions weren't immediately banned. Their leaders were arrested or intimidated, and suddenly, the unions voted to dissolve themselves and join the Nazi labor front. Professional associations, doctors, lawyers, teachers weren't given explicit orders. They saw which way the wind was blowing and preemptively expelled their Jewish members, rewrote their bylaws, declared their loyalty to the new order. The key effectiveness was in the ambiguity. No one knew exactly where the line was, so everyone drew it far back from where they stood. Local chess clubs added loyalty oaths nobody asked for. Town newspapers fired editors before anyone complained. Schools removed books from curricula without waiting for the banned list. Any of this familiar to you? By May 1933, 4 months after Hitler became chancellor, Germany's entire civic infrastructure had transformed itself. Not because there were SS officers in every meeting room, but because there didn't need to be. That's what we might be watching right now. ABC, Nexstar, and Sinclair aren't being forced. They're volunteering. They're competing to out-comply each other. Both Nexstar and Sinclair have mergers pending before the Trump administration. Both need FCC approval, so they race to demonstrate who's more loyal. But it's not just media companies. You've seen the coordination spread over the last week. Actors and musicians, gee whiz, who asked them to post anything, but they're up there posting identical statements about unity and healing. Sports teams mandate tributes. Corporate boards issue condolences that read a lot like loyalty oaths. Everyone racing to be seen grieving correctly, mourning appropriately, demonstrating sufficient outrage at insufficient outrage. This is how it works. Make the performance of loyalty seem organic, even popular. Make dissent feel not just dangerous, but tasteless. Who would object to mourning? Who would refuse to condemn violence? The Yankees are doing it. Your favorite singer is doing it. It must be what good people do. But here's where history reaches its limits, and historians have to acknowledge where our limits are. Historians are terrible fortune tellers. We can invoke 1933 all we want, but this is different, and the difference matters. Some historians will tell you to lean into institutions to fight tyranny, as if institutions are neutral tools just waiting for good people to use them, as if the problem is that we're not trying hard enough to make them work. That's a comfortable view from inside the establishment, where institutions have always worked for you, where you've never had to create resistance from nothing. But that's where most resistance lies. That's where most resistance comes from, and therefore resistance history knows better. It knows that institutions aren't neutral. They're just structures of power, and power serves power. When the moment comes, they don't resist, they collaborate. They don't need to be forced, they volunteer. ABC didn't wait for a formal order. Nexstar didn't need threatening. Sinclair invented new ways to show loyalty nobody asked for. They fell over themselves to comply with something that isn't even an order yet. You can't lean into that, it's already gone. And this is what resistance history teaches that people in the establishment don't admit. Sometimes the institutions were never on your side to begin with. They were just performing neutrality while power was stable. The moment power shifts, they shift with it. Faster than you can document it, certainly. In 1933, it took months of pressure, violence, and legislation to achieve what's happening here in hours. Those institutions aren't being broken. They're showing you what they always were: structures that serve whoever holds power, racing to prove their usefulness to the new order. And media outlets are tumbling along in this coverage to call Antifa far-left groups. Name them. Go ahead, name these organized far-left groups in America that are so active. I'll wait. Where's my membership card? They can't name them because they don't exist. What exists are people who show up to say no. That's not an organization. It's called people with values. Christopher Wray, Trump's first-term FBI director, admitted it. Antifa is a way of thinking, not an organization. You can't designate an idea as a terrorist organization under American law. But, and we have to acknowledge this, law stopped mattering the moment institutions decided that compliance was safer than truth and principle. Now imagine what happens when Antifa supporter becomes the accusation. You shared a post criticizing fascism? Antifa. You created content about resistance movements? Antifa. You question whether a vague idea can be a terrorist organization? Definitely Antifa. The effective trigger of this, from an authoritarian perspective, is that they never have to define it. Keep it vague and watch institutions compete to define it themselves. HR departments will scan social media for anyone who ever posted resist. Universities will audit syllabi for problematic content about historical resistance. Media companies will memory hold their archives and just wait for AI to kick in. We're already seeing it. MAGA influencers have launched campaigns to get people fired for inappropriate responses to Kirk's killing. Airlines, restaurants, businesses, scores of people already gone, and universities. What do we say about the universities? Hello, Clemson. Teachers fired, not for being Antifa, but for insufficient loyalty in the moment, which soon might be the same thing. I mean, how much more clearly can you say, I am a fascist, than by declaring anti-fascist as the enemy? The mechanism is devious, but it's proven. It's worked before. You don't need secret police when everyone becomes their own investigator, their own prosecutor, their own censor. The undefined threat makes everyone define it for themselves, always erring on the side of maximum caution. This is how you make everyone potentially guilty, not through laws or trials or evidence, through undefined categories that institutions enforce preemptively. The resistance history of America shows us this pattern. Power always declares resistance illegal right before it plans something that requires crushing opposition. But it usually takes time. It usually meets some resistance, some opposition. It usually has to fight for every inch. Not this time. This time it's different. Institutions are handing over the inches before anyone asks for them, and no opposition leader is emerging. You want to know what's different? In 1933, institutions had to be broken. In 2025, they're breaking themselves. What took months in 1933 is happening in hours in 2025, because digital records mean everything is evidence, because corporate liability means everyone's a cop, because the threats of being labeled terrorist adjacent is enough to make institutions destroy themselves rather than risk association. So much for their reason for being. The Constitution is already burning, not because Trump lit the match, but because every institution that was supposed to be protecting it is throwing gasoline on the flames to prove they're on the right side. That's not 1933. That's worse. Because at least in 1933, the institutions had to be forced. Today, they're volunteering and creating the machinery of repression through their competition to comply. That's not an opinion, folks. That's what's happening right now, faster than history can even record it. And history is only some guide as to what comes next, and none of it is any good. Be careful out there.